I want a reflection of the car. Why not? Let's start by the numbers here. The first thing I need is an image that's in a transparent background, and I already have that right here. So we're starting out fine. What I need is a copy. So I can grab it right here and drag it on top of the new icon. That would be one way to do it. Or you could press Control J, and that's Command J on a Mac, Control J in Windows. Now we have our copy. If I go to Car right here and grab it, let me pick up my Move tool. That might help. And there's the original. Let's do this. Let's go and drag our copy underneath, and let's call it Reflection. Next step, let's take Reflection and stand it on its head. So let's go up to the word Image on the pull-down menu and go down to Rotate and flip it vertical. All right. Still got the Move tool selected. Pull it down, match the tires. Now I see something. I don't have enough room vertically. I need more room. So let's stop and do that. Go up to the word Image on the pull-down menu and go down to Resize Canvas. Let's go ahead. I'm working in inches. That's fine. I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger up and down. Let's go about 6 inches. Now I want the space distributed equally, so I'm going to leave that alone down here and go ahead and click OK. That should give us more than enough room. Next step, let's change the background. Now my backdrop right here, you'll notice it's at an opacity of 1%. So let's get that back to where it is normally. And don't worry about the fact that it's, that color like that. Now I'm going to press the letter D on my keyboard, and that will default my colors to black and white. We're going to talk about a gradient. If I come over here and pick up the gradient tool, let's check our options here. I do have, and click here, this option, which is the foreground to background color, whatever they are. And that's important. It's always going to be in the upper left-hand corner of the default settings. We're going to talk more about gradients in this chapter. I have the linear gradient selected with 100% opacity and a normal blending mode. No reverse, transparency is on, and dither is on, which kind of helps it look nice. So I got black and white. I do have something in there, but it will ignore that and override it. Let's close this out for a second so we can see everything. Get right about here and drag straight down. That's actually kind of interesting, but I don't want those colors. So what I'm going to do is pick up my eyedropper tool. I'm going to click somewhere on the car, like one of these yellows down here. Incidentally, while we're here, we should check this too. I'm using a 3x3 average, not one single pixel, but actually 9 in a group. That's actually a better option in most cases, especially if you're working with flesh tones. Now, I have sample all layers on, which to me would be important since I do have a lot of layers. And let's go ahead and come back out of here. Actually, let's go ahead and select car up here and get right about here and click. And a little bit lighter than that, like that maybe. Now, I want the background color to complete the gradient. Hold down the Alt key, that's the Option key on a Mac, Alt in Windows, and grab somewhere around here. I don't know, we'll try that. Pick up your gradient tool, come back up to here. Oops, better get back down here, Andy. And come right here and drag straight down. It's kind of interesting. We might play with that later, but let's keep going. The reflection needs to look like a reflection, so we need to make it look a little bit more transparent. And also, I think it needs to be squeezed a little bit, because most reflections are not exactly the same shape and size as what they're reflecting. So let's do this first. Let's pick up reflection. I'm going to use a shortcut, Control T, that's Command T on a Mac, Control T in Windows to get my free transform. And I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to grab here and squeeze a little bit. Not a lot, just a little. And set it. Okay. Reflection is still selected. I would suggest here probably a good blending mode to blend it into that background. Now, this would work even better if the background were some kind of object, like maybe a wooden floor or something, where you'd actually see things coming through it. So we're going to come up here. The one I find that probably works the most, although it really depends on your colors, is overlay. Overlay it on top. I do like that. And I want to take the opacity down just a smidgen. Now, I kind of like that. I think it's working okay. One more thing I want to do, besides maybe come back and play with that background, is we need a shadow to define where the floor is. So go to Reflection as a layer and create a new layer, and that'll put it between car and reflection, and we'll call it shadow. Let's come over here, press the letter D on your keyboard, or click this little button right here, black and white. Pick up your elliptical marquee tool right here. I'm going to get right about where I think is the middle or close enough to it. I'm going to start drawing, but I'm going to hold the Alt key down so I draw out from center. And I want something, well, about like that actually. Now I'm going to fill that with the foreground color using the shortcut Macintosh, Option Delete, Windows, Alt Backspace. Control D, Command D on a Mac, Control D in Windows takes the selection away. Looks too good, obviously. Let's do this. Go up to the word filter and go down to blur and select Gaussian blur. Let's try a little bit more than 12. I'm going to type the number in. That's not too bad. We'll stop there at 15. And that number is arbitrary. Just depends on what you're doing. Let's take the opacity and dial that down just a little. Just enough to give a little bit of definition right there. So we have our reflection, we have the shadow. Now let's go back to the backdrop for a minute. Let's pick up our eyedropper. Let's choose a lighter yellow. I think I might like that if it were lighter. I'm going to click here to get the foreground and then hold the Alt key, Option on a Mac to get some more blue in the background. Let's try this 1 or 2 more times. So we pick up our gradient tool. Everything else is set. And we get right about here. Now I'm holding the Shift key down so I don't go this way or that way. Actually, I like that a lot better. Now we don't have to have such a tremendous gradient. If I get right about here, see where I am right there. Actually, I'll come over here so you can see this. Hold the Shift key down and drag, say, to just about there. You get a shorter gradient. And it actually doesn't look too bad either. You can experiment with different colors. Try a photograph in the background. Maybe a real showroom floor. Whatever you want to do, that's your backdrop. But I chose colors off the car just to tie them into the image. So sometimes you go to guided mode and you use the reflection option and it works for you. And sometimes it just might not give you what you want. You can make them from scratch. Let's go ahead and get out of here. And you know what? Let's save this one too. Just go ahead and click Save. There you go.